Hello, unprofessionals. This is Mealy here. First thing I want to say is thank you. Thank you so much. So this is episode 4, and you obviously must have liked episodes 1 through 3, or you just started at 4. You weirdo. Go back to 1 and listen to those first. Anyway, I want to say that I'm so thankful for everyone that has listened, for everyone that has shared it out to other people. We are now over at 100 downloads of episode 1, and that is way beyond my expectation, and I am so happy with that. So today, it'll be just me and Tedisco. Some episodes we have a guest. Some episodes we don't. Kind of like Almond Joy and Mounds. Sometimes there's a nut, sometimes there's not. Anyway, this is an episode where we talk about our favorite fictional teachers, because we just want to ramble on about teachery things. And also, there's a piece in here about how to motivate kids and a little story from my classroom. This episode is brought to you by Point 7 lead. Point 7 lead is 0.2 better than 0.5 lead. Use 0.7 lead. It's 0.2 better. Throw out your 0.5 lead and your 0.5 lead pencil. Get some 0.7, people. Alrighty. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Hey, welcome to Unprofessional Development, real teachers telling real stories.
Yes, you're still with us, or you clicked the wrong button.
Yes.
Either way, welcome.
Yeah. Oh, and that's what I want to say. So when you hear this, or there's not some kind of audio issue that we're having with the microphone or the recording.
No gas leak in the studio.
No, there isn't. There's not like a tire that's been punctured.
Mm-hmm.
That is just my way of laughing. So I've developed that over the years, and I don't know.
You ever watch Wacky Races?
Yes.
The dog and Wacky...
Muttley.
Muttley.
Yes.
Muttley and Wacky Race. That's what I think.
Does laugh at.
That's what I think
very
of.
Similar. Very similar. Students, regularly do an impression of it immediately after I laugh.
Oh, yeah. No, teenagers will find any insecurity you have and tear it apart at every given moment.
Yeah. So Mr. Millie, why do you laugh like that? I'm like, I don't know.
It wasn't a multiple choice option, right? You can't trade it. I have a really, when I laugh, like when something really catches me off guard and I laugh out loud, it's really loud. Yeah. It's loud and obnoxious. I can't do anything about that at this point.
Well, you could. What you can do is what I do is close your mouth and just let it seep out like that. See, no. Just hold it in.
Let it deflate slowly.
Right. It's almost like when you have those people that sneeze that won't really sneeze. They're like, you're like, what are you doing? I'm sneezing. I'm like, no, you're not. That's not what sneezing is. Okay. So anyway, I just want to clarify that for the future. I don't know if we'll have to deal with that. But
is that a fear? Was that a worry?
Saying about that. Yeah, it was a worry. When I listened to it I'm like, are they going to know what that is? Or are they just going to think that's just a random noise?
Might just sound like a defect.
Yeah. A couple things we want to talk about. So I think we may have mentioned this on 1 or 2 episodes, but we plan on having some just Tedisco and Mealy episodes, and sometimes we'll have a guest. But I realize now that if we did want to be anonymous, we could have just called you Mr. English and called me Mr. Math.
We sure could have. That would have been smart. No wonder we didn't think of it.
Yeah, I did think of it, just not beforehand.
I don't know. Mr. English, I feel like Johnny English, it's a spy name.
Yes.
Mr. English, Mr. Math. It's like the setup to a Quentin Tarantino movie.
It could be, yes. That we could be, yes. Yeah. But then when we have our guests on, they would be Mr. History and Mr. Science and all that. Except when we have math and English teachers on. It would be really confusing as to which ones we were talking to.
I had a friend who, of course, lived in Woodstock, and she would only call people by their zodiac signs.
Nice.
And so I always wondered what would happen if you had more than one person, and it never came up in all of my time knowing her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have I told you about my algebra teacher that called everybody George?
No.
So my 8th grade algebra teacher, he was 75, 80 years old. Mr. Spurger, I guess I can say his name. He is long gone on to the great classroom in the sky. So what we call it. But anyway.
That's definitely not it. He's teaching in a farm upstate.
By the way,
that's terrible.
If it's heaven, I don't believe it's a classroom. That's not true.
There are definitely no classrooms in heaven. That's like getting to heaven and finding out, here's your cubicle. No.
So anyway,
They're Montessori school up in the gated
nice,
communities.
I never had this conversation with him, but at some point, I guess he decided that he was no longer making an effort to learn students' names. I'm sure when he was a new teacher, he decided he must have, but he decided at some point, I'm no longer learning students' names.
Bold.
I'm calling everybody George.
Male or female.
Male or female,
just,
yes.
Like George Foreman, I'm
Yes,
just naming all of my
George.
children George.
And he was just like, what's the answer, George? And you're like, me? Who's he looking at? And you just like do the old look behind you. Is he looking at me? Because he'd always like make eye contact with you.
Right.
And then like me, and he'd be like, yes, George, you. And I've thought about adopting that practice. Surely that's something if you're listening to this and you're like really, really bad with names and you want the solution, now you no longer have to do that.
There you go.
You can just call every kid George. So
I had a teacher, he taught us economics in high school. He was really awesome, really nice guy. He spoke like a supervillain. And he wasn't a mean guy. But like when you'd raise your hand, he'd call on you going, yes, old friend. We're like,
nice.
When is that?
Nice.
Yeah, that was his go-to.
So now, boys and girls and podcast listeners, we're going to get into our favorite fictional teachers and just talk about some fictional teachers and why we like them and how we like them and what, this is going to be kind of extemporaneous and how that's going to help us be better teachers, or I don't know. Or
this isn't going to be helpful at all. Let's not. No.
It might be a little bit.
That's true.
I'm choosing Mr. Miyagi.
All right. So you're opening with Mr. Miyagi? That's
Yes.
your go-to? Okay. Mr. Miyagi, why is he the teacher?
What I love about him is he answers the question, when am I going to use this in real life? Okay? And I know I'm talking about a movie from the 80s, boys and girls, so not the one with Will Smith and his son. Please, can we just burn every copy of that there is? Stop doing that, okay? Don't remake Casablanca either, or Casablanca. Anyway, I still hate that Steve Martin redid the Pink Panther. Sorry. That's not this podcast.
Gotta move on.
So Mr.
Check
Miyagi,
the pacing guide.
Pacing guide. Mr. Miyagi, Daniel's son says,
right.
When am I going to use wax on and wax off in real life? I'm just waxing a car. You just want your cars that for some reason you've let go for all these years to be shined, and your fence to be painted, and your floor to be sanded, and all these things. I'm doing all these things. And then Mr. Miyagi shows him that he's developed these muscles that he can use in real life when he fights Cobra Kai. So there are things, and we talked about this with the whole big tire thing. So that's why Mr. Miyagi, I like that he's using something different to teach a skill that is important.
I will agree with that. I think it would have done him well if he did some sort of a pre-teaching, right? To sort of set up Daniel-san. So that way he didn't spend the whole time thinking that he was just wasting his time, because that is how most kids feel. If he said
Yes.
hey, just so you know, do this and you'll be a martial arts master, I think that would have incentivized him.
It could.
To work a little harder.
It could. Would not have been as good a movie.
Right.
But yes.
Also, I don't think catching a fly in chopsticks is a good check for understanding.
Oh my goodness! If you can do that, you can do anything.
I mean, that solid. Back to the exit tickets.
Yes.
That is one heck of an exit ticket.
Yes. No one gets out till we can all catch a fly with or at our school it would probably be a cockroach.
Right. I mean, no, our schools are always wonderful. All right, my number one teacher, I gotta say, I think probably the best teacher on film, on the screen, is Mr. Feeney.
Okay.
Boy Meets World. Have you
Yes.
seen Boy Meets World?
Yes. Isn't he a principal though?
He became a principal. Season 1, he was his teacher.
Okay.
All right.
Then there was a long-haired, curly-haired guy. There was the heartthrob to get the
Right.
young ladies to watch the show.
Right. So season
Mr. Feeney.
So season
Not getting
1.
a lot of young ladies to watch the show.
Not so much with the Feeney. So season 1, he was the teacher because it was what's his name? Corey's last year in middle school, and so
Okay.
the next year Corey moves to high school, and it turns out Mr. Feeney's the principal now. So
Yes,
he's
that's
sort of
quite unrealistic. I mean,
right.
Go ahead.
But I mean, Mr. Feeney,
Middle school principal to middle school teacher to high school principal. Why did you make that move?
why didn't I make that move? All of the reasons, actually. There's literally, that's a whole conversation, another thing, moving from teaching to administration.
Yeah, why we're not administrators, we'll talk about another day.
Oh my,
Other than the obvious.
there's a lot of talking to do about that one.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, he takes literature and he makes it relevant to the kids and he gets them interested. And I will say I do worry about his pacing guides, since every episode he's focusing on a new piece of literature or a new world lesson. It's like, oh, now we're on World War II and now we're reading Hamlet. I'm like, you're not reading Hamlet with a group of 8th graders in a week and then putting on a play. Okay, sir, you are putting an...
And I'm changing my lessons based on one student's personal issues.
Right.
Which is an awesome way to teach. I normally do it. Please submit your personal issues. I'll have the lesson plans for next week.
Right. Yeah, I like Mr. Feeney. He just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy.
He did have, like, one of the things that I think we both think is really important in a teacher.
A mustache.
A mustache, and also to be the voice of a talking car in another show. But...
oh, I forgot about that.
Yes, he is Kit.
He's Kit.
He is. He was also in a show called St. Elsewhere, but this is not IMDb. IMDb.
There you go.
Right.
No, this is an illusion and a snow globe. I'm sorry, go on.
He had the rapport with the kids. He cared about the kids, and the kids knew they cared about him. And when the kids know that they care about you, then they care more about what you have to say. I think that he definitely... give us another one.
Another one?
Yes.
Okay.
You can steal from my list over here.
Oh, I'm not stealing from your list. I got my own list. Absolutely up there. Miss Honey.
I have no idea who that is.
Matilda.
Still don't know who that is.
You never saw Matilda?
No, I never saw Matilda.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Matilda...
Isn't that written by the same guy that wrote Good Omens, Bad Omens, or something?
No. Good Omens was written by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Matilda was written by Roald Dahl. He also wrote James and the Giant Peach and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and the BFG and a whole bunch of other stuff. So Matilda is a little girl from kind of an abusive, neglectful family.
All I know is I saw a thing and she has a big hat.
Matilda?
Maybe that's somebody else.
No, I think you're thinking of somebody else.
Okay.
You might be thinking of Madeline.
Madeline, yes. They both start with M, and they're little girls.
Madeline's a little French girl.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Who's Matilda? She's not a French girl?
No, she's an American. She's all American.
God bless America.
It's like a PG version of Carrie. So Matilda has a neglectful family, so she goes to the library and gets a whole bunch of books and is super smart, and gets to the point where she can start using telekinesis.
Oh.
So she goes to this school run by...
that from the library? That's
definitely.
Awesome.
Yes, that's exactly what Roald Dahl was saying. Books are superpowers. I mean,
nice.
Yeah. So... when she starts school...
Miss Honey teacher, that's what we're talking about.
Right, Miss Honey. So she goes there and...
what a sweet name.
The Trunchbull's the principal.
Not a lot of subtlety in naming her Miss Honey.
No, Roald Dahl was not a subtle man. Yeah, she was sweet. She's encouraging. She helps Matilda get more books to learn more things. She tries to put in her accelerated classes, and she always encourages her, and she just helps build rapport. In fact, she even helps patch up some of her kids when they get bruised by the evil principal, the Trunchbull.
Oh, okay.
So, you should absolutely see Matilda.
Okay. Or read the book. The English teacher encouraged me to watch the movie, not read the book.
I'm not much of a reader.
Okay, yeah, reading.
It's two reads.
The whole purpose of books is so that they can eventually make a movie out of it.
Absolutely. I'm just saying, so the movie star Danny DeVito as
He's
her
good
dad.
in everything.
Yes, exactly. Definitely
He's
up there.
responsible for Pulp Fiction being made. Did you know that?
Danny DeVito?
He was the producer on Pulp Fiction.
I was not aware.
Yes, that's amazing for him. Thank you, Danny DeVito, for Pulp Fiction.
That is awesome.
Yes. Yeah, he would not have been made without Danny DeVito, most likely. Yes, more stuff.
Anyway. All right. So I threw down Honey and Feeney. What do you got?
Okay, so I'm torn. See, if I go Yoda, I feel like I'm back to another Mr. Miyagi situation. So I'm gonna leave him off. But
also, I got some issues with Yoda, but only because of the prequels.
Okay, yeah. Well,
and that's a whole separate argument.
Yeah, we're not talking retcon. But anyway,
I'm sorry. We're gonna put down our nerd cards right here on the table.
So Mrs. Krabappel. Okay.
How is she your pick for a top teacher? She's drinking and smoking in class.
Okay, here's why I like Mrs. Krabappel.
Go on. All right, she almost made my list.
Number one, I love that her name, and this is more nerdy stuff, her name is an homage to Mrs. Crabtree, who was the Little Rascals teacher. I don't know if you know that or not.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so Mrs. Crabtree was
job,
her
Matt
name,
Greening.
and she's Mrs. Krabappel, and so I am 99% sure that there is some correlation between those things. Things on The Simpsons very rarely happen by coincidence.
No.
No, what I like about her is the fact that she's one of the realer teachers in TV, even though she's a drawing. Okay? There really are teachers are human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And, some of them are going through divorces. Some of them have chemical dependency issues. Some of them have criminal tendencies and criminal pasts. Some of them are sociopaths. So they're just like so are doctors, so are lawyers, so are plumbers, so are electricians.
Just every person you work with.
Right, because you become a teacher doesn't mean they don't pick from this magical teacher field of people who are pure and wonderful and love children.
Right.
No,
it's like politicians. You'd like to think good people try to go for power.
Yes.
They don't.
Right. And some people it's like we were talking about English teachers. Well, I really like to read, or I really like history. I don't want to work at a museum, and I want to have a job. So, I'll teach it. What? I have to talk to annoying kids and teenagers. They're stupid and not as smart as me. I got a 4.0. And my thing, why can I not only teach to people who get 4.0s? Why do I have to teach to all kids? This is horrible. Guess what? They didn't do their homework last night. This one here is talking back to me. And
here's the other thing too. For public school teachers, we teach the public. Have you seen the public?
Yes.
We teach everybody.
Yes.
Have you seen everybody? Everybody does not work at your job.
No.
Everybody does not graduate high school. You want to know where everybody goes? The DMV.
Yes.
Next time you're at the DMV, I want you to look around at the crowd of people nestled into that cold, cold room.
Yes.
And think about getting them all to write an essay. I want you to think about what that life would be like.
Well, I explain that to somebody. And yes, you can teach at a school in an affluent school district where all their parents are well educated and stuff like that. But we teach at the school we're fortunate enough to teach at a school that has a cross section of all different sorts of people. It's very diverse, both economically, both racially, both just everything. So in America currently, 33% of adults have college degrees. That's not very many.
No.
So that means that 60% of your children don't have parents that have been to college, and a good percent of them don't even think that college is a realistic thing because they didn't go to college, and no one in their family has ever gone to college, ever. So why would they expect that their child would go to college? No, you're going to go to high school like I did, and when you get out, you're going to get a job like I did, and this and that and the other thing. And I barely graduated, and hopefully you'll barely graduate.
And now, and we're not putting down trade schools either, because I think that trade schools are a wonderful program. I think there are a lot of great work programs, out there for people who don't want to do the college route,
Mm-hmm.
or for people who, have issues or special needs where college is clearly not going to work for them. But we also can tell, definitely in America, more than 33% of our populace has the ability to go to college if they apply themselves and know that they're capable of it and have those resources.
More than 30%. But not 100.
Not 100.
So that's the challenge. But anyway, Mrs. Krabappel, she is a real teacher. I think that she still cares and wants the kids to learn. I don't think she's 100% burnout. I think she's frazzled. I think she's dealing with all the challenges the teachers work with, and she's trying to do her best. And of course, obviously, she's got Bart in her class. Sometimes she has Bart, and she teaches Lisa too, though, right? And Ralph Wiggum and whoever else it happens to be, And
she's been teaching them for over a decade, so that can't be an easy class.
30 years having Bart Simpson is a long time.
That's a stretch.
Yeah. So, but we all have those Bart Simpsons in our classes, and we all have those Lisas that were like, oh my goodness, you're so smart and wonderful, and I'm unbelievably fortunate to teach you. And then we have the Ralph Wiggums where it's like, oh boy,
Ralph.
If I love you to death, Ralph. You're wonderful and you're sweet, and you definitely you'll be messing up my pacing guide because no matter what I teach you, Ralph, tomorrow you're just gonna guess again.
Yes, for his Ralph's science fair project that they worked all month on, he just brought in a whole bunch of Star Wars action figures.
Did he?
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, which is honestly, it's a pretty realistic classroom.
Okay. Do we have any more teachers that you want to get to before we get to anything else that we might want to talk about before we wrap this piece up?
Oh, I could talk about fictional teachers all day.
Okay, so hit us with another one.
But do we want to talk about another?
Yes, hit us with another one. We'll try not to get off too tangential. Actually, really focus on that teacher and why they are someone that you really like as a teacher?
Well, the next teacher I wanted to talk about was Walter White. And I
Okay.
feel like between the two of us, it would be very tangential.
Yeah, because he doesn't do a lot of teaching.
But he does. Like the way he talks to Jesse about, killing people and selling meth, he's telling him to apply himself. He's really giving him like a lot of those classic teacher monologues. It's a good sort of deconstruction.
Yeah, but no, I don't think as like...
I'm not going to say he's a great teacher.
He's a really good character who happens to be a teacher.
Right. I agree with that.
As opposed to
his role really isn't teaching.
Right. As
Yes.
opposed to really good, like Mrs. Krabappel, she's mostly a teacher.
Yes.
I assume Miss Honey is mostly a teacher.
That is her hat.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Miyagi, I see him really mostly as a teacher.
Yeah.
That's his main
Absolutely.
role,
He's the sensei.
Yes. Mentor, you know what I mean? And all that kind of stuff. So, we're going to throw out some things that worked. Just a little piece here. So, I know I've got one here that I want to talk about. Is there one that you want to talk about? You go, hey, this is really cool. Or I heard this or saw this or did this.
Something that worked recently?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but I'll go second.
Okay. So, this story was very enlightening for me. And it really made me realize something experientially that I knew. But it's all about the delivery. It's very much about the delivery. So, the initial time that I had this situation, I had a class of honor students. They were really, really smart, okay? And some of them were even in marching band, which is going to be relevant in just a minute, all right? So, the tables were in groups of 2 or 3 where the tables were pushed together, okay? In little groups of 2 or 3, little pods or whatever you want to call them. Well, today was the day we were going to be taking a quiz or a test. I forget which, but I believe it was a quiz. I said, okay, class, you guys are in 10th grade and some of you 11th grade. You've been in school a long time. I'm pretty sure you've seen desks in rows. These desks aren't in rows, but I don't want you so close to your neighbor's quiz paper. Can we please rearrange these desks in rows? I thought that was super clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen desks in rows, right, Mr. Disco?
I sure have.
You know what they look like.
I do.
If I put you in a room full of desks and said, put these desks in rows, would I need to give you any more instruction?
I think I could put it together.
When I came in, I would know that they were in rows. They might not be exactly like I looked, but they would definitely be in rows.
Right.
How many rows and how deep the rows were might vary if I didn't give you those specifics.
Right.
When these kids were done, after 3-5 minutes of desks scraping on the floor, which is such a horrible sound to begin with, it looked like they've been dropped out of a helicopter and then rearranged by, like, I don't know, by a blind robot. So
Just dropped by a Roomba.
I look and know the desks are no longer touching each other, so they got that piece. Mr. Neely, my
Nailed
desk
it.
is no longer next to his.
Right.
But they were not in rows. Which one? I'm like, oh, so I have to do this. Johnny, this is row 1. This is seat 1. Guys, get some desks behind this. Fred, this is the second column. This is where it starts. Make them line up behind this. And I made like 5 first desks and had them line them up in the columns behind that. I'm like, oh, that's so frustrating. This should have been better. Fast forward 2 years. I'm in a similar situation because the next couple of years I was in classrooms where they were already in rows and I just kind of left them that way. So then the next year they're in the pod type thing again. I tell this story that I just told you to that class, and we laugh and they shake their heads and we're all having a good time. I go, listen, do I have to stay, here's where column 1 starts, and here's where column 2 starts, and here's where column 3 starts? They go, George, no. We do not need that, okay? We can do this. And my previous experience was, no, kids cannot do that. They need to be told this. And I said, you guys have 3 minutes. Give it a whirl. honestly, and teachers are supposed to have high expectations. I had really low expectations based on the previous thing. And Mr. Tedisco, in about a minute and a half, it looked perfect. Same kind of kids, same task, same teacher, completely different results.
So what do you think was, the deciding factor? What do you think is exactly what changed that?
They felt challenged, and they wanted to prove to me that they could do it.
That does help.
It has to be something that they can do, but if you're like, oh, you couldn't possibly do this. A lot of kids, some kids won't respond to that well, but a lot of kids, particularly the achievers, will be like, oh, you think that's too hard for us? No, nothing's ever been too hard for me ever. Give me the hard. I beat hard on a regular basis, and they did. So that really worked. I don't know how you necessarily apply that to every situation all the time, but I know that that's a piece of information that I try to keep in the back of my mind when I'm trying to get kids to do something.
And yeah, I mean, that also comes down to knowing your classrooms too. Sometimes you'll just have a classroom, especially I found with my classes that are more male than female. Some classes are just very competitive. So if you turn anything into a simple competitive game, they just get super into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's absolutely accurate.
Yeah. So does that give you an inspiration? Tell us a story about something that you had that worked.
No. But I will say two things. I think there are two important things to say. Number one, I think one of the main issues with professional development in schools is the fact that somebody will come in and say, look, here's this thing. It'll fix all of your problems. Just do this. Have you tried rigor? Yes. And sometimes they'll actually give you some helpful things. They're like, oh, you can try doing this in your classroom. Look, here's a jigsaw. Have you heard of a jigsaw? Do jigsaw.
Yes.
Jigsaw and teaching, not like, do you want to play a game? Like, just for those who don't teach.
Yes.
And so, but the problem is, then you take that information, you try to bring it back to your classroom. But you're somebody who's never done it before. You're somebody who's never planned it out before.
Right.
And you're doing it with a group of kids who is used to doing things the way you've been doing it.
Yes.
And it will fall apart very quickly.
Yeah.
Was it you who pointed that out on our
I
last
did point that out before.
PD?
Yes. So if you do things like, some things they know how to do because they've done in other classes. But some things they don't know. Like, it was amazing to me. I had kids create an online notebook. So we were going to put, like, examples, and we could put links to videos, and I wanted them to, because, like, math is so cumulative. I'm like, wouldn't it be really cool if they developed this little math Google folder that they could, do stuff? Well, guess what? They didn't know how to take a picture with their Chromebook. So that had to be its own lesson. I'm like, what you can do is you can just write something down on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard and just take a picture with your Chromebook. How do I take a picture with my Chromebook? I'm like, oh. Google how to take a picture with your Chromebook. That's what you do. But like, there were a lot of kids that they were afraid of. Like, how do I take a screenshot with it, And then, like, they had no idea. I didn't know this. It's like this had become another lesson. You can have a folder inside a folder. What? How do you do that?
On like a Google Drive?
Yes. Yeah. How do you have or anything?
I had to teach a lesson on how to scan something with those codes, those QXR codes.
Yeah.
I had to teach a lesson once on how to read a comic book. Because they gave them a comic book to read. But the kids just looked at these panels and went, I don't know what to do.
They didn't know, like, the order to read it in.
Yeah. No clue.
Random boxes with things in it.
Yeah.
Where would I start?
Well, especially because
why not at the top left like you normally do? But it's a Japanese comic book. You didn't give them those, right?
I did not. I did not give them a manga.
You don't teach Japanese.
I did not.
Okay.
But even like
a lot of the manga, whatever it is, like, I know what that is. You are way too nerdy.
But like a lot of comic books too, though, they don't just have like 4 panels anymore. It's different panels and circles.
Maybe a big thing in the middle.
Right, splash panels and whatnot.
Yes.
And so,
splash panels.
You wouldn't even think about some of the things to teach, especially if you're straight out of college and you're just so nestled in academia.
Yeah.
And then you get to like, the public. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's not a thing humans do normally.
Yeah. Here's something I found out. So our plan is, and it still is, I guess, I think you'll see if you've already clicked on it. But our plan is for our logo to have a dunce cap on it. And I was explaining that to my 14-year-old son. He's like, is that the... What? Come on, Harry Potter. Is that that?
Sorting Hat.
Yes. I'm like...
Listen. Why am I the go-to nerd?
I don't know. I thought I was nerdy, but then I met you. Anyway, but, so I used to be nerdier. I'm just not on the current nerdy stuff. Okay? Right. All right. I did see Tom Baker speak when I was in, 10th grade.
Did you have your own scarf to wear?
I didn't have my own scarf, but I did subscribe to the Whovian Times. Got it quarterly delivered to my house.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, I'm not going to explain it.
Yeah, it's a Dr.
Just
Who
know you're
podcast
cooler
now.
than us.
Yeah. So anywho,
Boo.
right. My sons didn't know what a dunce cap was.
Mm-hmm.
So I texted, we'll call her Mrs. History, okay, or Miss History.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so do people your age know what a dunce cap is? The text back I got was, a dunce cap? ?
Nope.
So I don't know. It's a dunce cap. Well, maybe we'll have to do a whole podcast on what dunce caps were.
I gave my kids, as a follow-up to Romeo and Juliet, I give them a choice board. And one of the options is they have...
A choice board? What's that?
Yeah, you get a whole bunch of options. It's a menu. So you get a menu of different things to show your understanding. Because some kids are better at thinking through things visually.
I want to draw a picture instead of writing an essay.
And you can do that. Well, there are different options. You're going to have to write one thing. But it's like pick one from each column. And so, yeah. And so it challenges them, but it also lets them get a feeling of choice. Because if kids feel like they chose something...
Right, they get a little more ownership.
Yeah, and they just get a lot more energized about it. So one of the options was to create a social media page, like a fake one, like on paper, like draw it out, for one of the characters in Romeo and Juliet. It's as if they were alive today. So like, what kind of movies would they like? So maybe Juliet would really like Titanic because it's romantic and it's right. And so I gave them this thing. It was a little fake page called a Shakesbook. And it was like a little Facebook page where like you draw on the characters and then there's a wall for people to post stuff. And my kids had no idea what Facebook was because we're already past that.
Oh, Facebook is for old people.
Yeah. So, in my mind...
The old people said, I don't know what these young people are at the Facebook is. And now the young people say, no, we're on the gram.
Yeah.
Okay?
So, like, I gave them this thinking I'm the hip teacher with the Facebook connection. So, like, none of them knew what a wall was or what its purpose was.
Yeah.
Very lost.
Okay. We need to wrap it up here soon. But did I already talk about the teacher that asked kids to do the resume with the Marvel characters and they could choose any Marvel character? They're teaching how to write a resume, right? Oh, pick a Marvel character and write their resume. Did I tell you about this?
No.
So, one kid brilliantly, you know who he chose?
Who?
Groot. Experience? I am Groot. Skills? I am Groot. Interest? I am Groot. The whole turns in the whole assignment. It just says I am Groot on every line. A+.
Special languages? Yo soy Groot.
Yes. Nice. All right. So that wraps it up again. Alrighty. This is the end of the episode. Thank you again for listening. This is the part where I ask you to share. Sharing is caring. Okay? Post it on social media. Mention it to your barber, your hairstylist, all right? The lady that does your nails. Anyway, just the other day, I was in Barnes & Noble, saw a random person tutoring. I said, oh, you must be a teacher. Hey, listen to Unprofessional Development. It's funny. And by the way, why do I keep talking higher all the time? Anyway, so thank you again for listening. Please share with all of your friends in whatever way you seem possible. And if you have ideas, you have thoughts, you have feedback, in our show notes is our email address, unprofessionaldevelopmentcast@gmail.com. And we appreciate all the feedback. Hey, you want to make some fan art? Draw us, me and Tedisco. Draw Professor Science, whatever it is. Maybe draw some kids with their hands boiling from the other episode. Anyway, whatever you want to do, we appreciate it. Thank you so much again. And tune in next week for an episode with a guest.